Hello, how are you? I wanted to follow up on my earlier presentation on starting a Board of Trustees in the state of New York. You probably can see some paintings behind me. I bought those in Argentina in 2002. And there was one I wanted to buy, and I liked it, and I bought it. And then meeting the gallery owner, we would sit down and talk, and I'd meet the artist and so forth. And sometimes I would get tired and say, "Oh, I want to leave now," or something like that. And he would say, "No, stay, talk. I'll go get lunch, or I'll do whatever, coffee, whatever." He'd always try to extend the conversation and talk, keep the conversation talking. And I also remember working for a window company, and they would sell windows, and their technique was to talk to the customer as much as possible until you practically were thrown out of the house, until you get the sale. I'm not a person who can talk a lot like that, and I didn't last long. I was pretty much fired after a week, because it's not my style of. I'm more of a writer, or I just can't talk so long. But I know that somehow, for some reason, people, if you talk long enough, they give up. That's why it works. So, why do we need a Board of Trustees? Well, to restore self-government. And I mentioned that we have basically a donor dictatorship, a government of, by, and for the donors. And the voting process is just for giving the people illusion that they have some power. And everybody pretty much knows that now. But we still need a Board of Trustees to put that donor state into balance with something that's of value. And that's why having the Board of Trustees have a theme of self-government and having all the power necessary to assure self-government, it can push that donor state into a positive direction. One of the things that the donor state likes to do, especially these days, is promote gun control. And they'll probably win unless there is a Board of Trustees, because nothing else is going to stop the machine from chewing up everything that it wants when it wants it. And one way to combat that is to have some kind of asymmetric point of power to check that power that exists now and push it back a little bit. And it needs to have some legal authority. And a bunch of people protesting something in a park isn't going to do it. That type of stuff just doesn't work. And throwing stones won't work. Nobody's up for a revolution. And so there has to be a positive thing that people can strive for that is low risk. Like, hey, here's the Board of Trustees. We want the Board of Trustees recognized. That way, it's a bloodless revolution. I am talking about a popular pivot, and the term refers to a bloodless change of system. So, an example of that would have been when the Soviet Union dissolved and the Berlin Wall fell down. Another popular pivot was when when Czechoslovakia split into the Czech and Slovak republics. That was not too famous an event. But it can also go the other way when, for example, East Germany and West Germany united. That was a popular pivot. It didn't require a war or revolution or coup d'etat. There was some kind of non-constitutional agreement to just do it. And same thing like the Soviet Union. I don't know why it dissolved from a technical legal point of view, but it probably wasn't intended to be done. Another popular pivot in the United States was when the southern states seceded, they pulled out. That was a pivot, and they pivoted into the Confederacy. And that was a bloodless event as well. But the North later on didn't want them to stay a sovereign republic. So that was, but that was not, the popular pivot part was bloodless. And many, for example, the Louisiana Purchase, there was a debate over whether it was legitimate for Jefferson did he have the power to buy that land from France? He just did it. So you could call it a popular pivot as well. It was popular with the people. It solved the problem, and it was for the better, overall. And so having a popular pivot in this day and age would mean add a board of trustees to your state government, to your national government, to try to push out or box out the donor state, and the donor state would basically go away once you had public funding for elections. And that's what the Board of Trustees, as I envision it, would do. That would be its first job, its first business. And there's still time for that to happen here in New York State, because although it's cutting it very close, I think there's the primary day is around September 11th or 12th or something like that. It's around then. It could be earlier. I have to check. But it's early September. And one thing about doing it this way, we don't ask the state legislature to create a board of trustees, because they'll naturally pick cronies of their own, right? So the system will be hijacked before it gets started. So you create your own board of trustees, ask the state legislature to recognize it, and then it can do its proper work. This is also called the commanding heights. Once you start out with the commanding heights, then you can do things that are healthy, if you're healthy and positive. And so even if it doesn't get recognized, it still has the power to be sort of a voice for what should be done, and that will have value in the long run. I mean, there's many non-political institutions that have some voice, and they're influential, and they can get things done or motivate people. All of this is just about motivating people in a way that they can trust something good will get done. Because a lot of people who are politically frustrated, they either tune out or they want a revolution, but then they sulk because nobody will start one or whatever. I don't know why they, you can't organize one really. But so you have to find some peaceful way to add a piece to the government, rather than overthrow it. Add a piece to it that can be a force for good, and then in the long run, new blood, a new direction can be forged. So that will be my talk for today. I know someone mentioned that they said nice hair on my other video, and I was going to mention something about charisma, that it involves a strong positive with a minor, let's say negative or deficiency. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he has all the muscles, right? But he had an accent or a funny name or something like that. His positive dominated his unique features, and so that gave him charisma. So maybe my bald head will be my point of charisma. But it doesn't matter. What counts is that we get this Board of Trustees done, and it can issue money to the politicians to eliminate the donor bias in politics. Then we can pay off the state debts, the local debts. Then the state legislature can abolish most or all of the state taxes, and that becomes a role model for the rest of the country. Then they can do it all across the country, and then at the federal level, the same thing can happen. And that would be, a big domino effect that can reverberate all around the world. Because right now, we're in a state of heavy debts, and, sort of like they call it deflation, where they can't stimulate the economy by the banking system because people don't qualify in terms of credit anymore. And they don't want it either. They don't want to go into debt. So the government might fill up the banks with money as they do, but nobody qualifies for a loan on the one hand, and yet they're still taxing. So there's a vacuuming out of money, and that's why they want to spend money on things. So once you pay off the debt and you get rid of the taxes, the money can stay in the economy, and people can find their own way, and it can find its own structure and where it will have the most benefit. All right, enough for this. Make your video if you can. Please spread the word, and remember, you can make you make your video and you'll be on a $1,000 thank you list. And then the other option was to send in $5. If 50,000 people sent in $5, there's a lot of things that can be done. You can lobby, you can get organized and present formal things to them, and it won't look so cheap as it is now. All right, see you later. Have a good day.